episode 3 of Gridiron Gang. What we have for you today is a record breakdown, a record prediction of all 32 teams in the NFL. After we go through that, we're going to have our 8 division winners. We're going to put them in a playoff bracket, and we're going to let you know who we think will come out on top at the end of the season. So, starting with that, we're going to go ahead and go with the NFC North to start things off.
All right.
At the top of the division, alphabetical order, Chicago Bears, it's on you.
Chicago, man. This was pretty easy for me. I had them at 3-14.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not gonna go through every single freaking loss that I gave them, but
go through the wins for me.
The wins, I got Houston, Atlanta, and Washington.
Okay.
So I think Houston, they are definitely better than Houston in my eyes. But the other two, I think those are 2 wins that they kind of just they squeak by in those games and they pull it out. So, because I mean, when you look at it on paper, Chicago, what they've done in the offseason, I mean, they didn't give any help to Justin really, and it's not looking pretty, at least for this year for them right now, because they're in a total rebuild. So it's a year that you're not going to be used to seeing Chicago be that bad.
Similar record for me, 2-15. I haven't beaten Washington and Atlanta, so
okay.
We agree on that. Next team, Detroit Lions. I think this is where we're going to start differing a little bit. I got 9-8 for Detroit.
Yeah.
When I went through this schedule, there's some games for sure at the beginning. It's going to look ugly. It's going to start tough, but you got to figure you're going to get a healthy Jameson towards the back half of the season.
Right.
You're going to get Jared Goff second year in the system with more weapons. They seem to play hard for Dan Campbell. I like Dan Campbell. They added some pieces to the defense as well. I feel like this team, I kind of feel like this record is a little generous, but I do believe in this Detroit team going forward.
Yeah. We were way different on this because I had them at 5-12, and that's just me living in the NFC North, seeing Detroit all the time. I feel like I was like maybe too hard on them with this prediction, but when I look at the schedule, I just feel the losses I gave them.
I think 5 is a very solid number. If I was a betting man, I think 6 would be.
It was hard for me because, especially when I gave them a loss to Jacksonville, I based that off of Jacksonville getting an upset there because I do think Detroit's the better team.
Yeah.
But it could be a game where they're just battling it out and it ends up going not their way.
Right.
So, and that's the thing about these schedules is it's tough to predict these upsets and whatever else. It's kind of like you're basing it off the team's history and how they have performed in the past. But also you got to take into account what they did in the offseason. They had a good draft. So like I said, 5-12 is probably too harsh, but I do see them as a team that could be around 500 as well.
And I think 9-8 might be too generous, so we can go 7-10 will probably
be I can see that for sure. I mean, Detroit. They're not in my eyes, and they could be a team that splits with Green Bay. I gave Green Bay the sweep there, but especially when you look at Green Bay, like we'll get into them, but
I gave the Packers a sweep too.
Everyone's looking at Green Bay as still the same Green Bay team, which isn't the case. Like they don't have the same offense as they did last year. So when you're bringing in these new receivers, I mean, you still got Lazard, you got Sammy Watkins, but I mean, Sammy's not Devontae Adams, Lazard's not Devontae. When you had your whole offense going through Devontae and then he's taken away, you're not going to be the same. And granted, you still have Rodgers, who is capable of doing everything and putting the team on his back, and they do have a good defense still. But
give me a record for them.
They're on another page. I have them at 10-7, so I think they're still a good team. They're just not the 13-4 team that you saw last year.
Or the year before.
Right.
Or the year before.
Yep.
Devontae, the loss of that is being very underestimated. I have him at 10-7 as well. For all the reasons you said, I mean, Aaron Rodgers will win you a couple games, but the defense did get stronger. The receiving room still questionable, but it's going to have to be by committee.
Right.
Running back room is good. I like Jones and I like A.J. Dillon. They're reliable. They brought Tunyon back, I believe, or did he?
Yeah, I think he got a 1-year deal. I think
so. Definitely a reliable target, and Rodgers trusts him.
Mm-hmm.
LaFleur seems to be he knows what he's doing.
He's a good coach.
Yeah, he's a good coach.
Respectable. I like him. It's just, that's
the best receiver in the league.
Right, exactly. But I think when you get into the cold weather, though, I think Lambeau is a very, very tough place to play. That's where they come away with a lot of wins that you don't expect them to come away with because their schedule falls a certain way. Like the Rams going back there this year in cold weather, like that's a tough one. I think that's a toss-up because are they catching the Packers at a time where they're starting to click, or the weather is going to affect them since they're West Coast?
Or I think that's a detriment to this Green Bay team this year because they only have one game at home versus a team who's a warm weather team.
Yeah.
Unless you want to consider Dallas, but that's sort of middle of the year. But that Rams game is in Lambeau late in the year.
Yeah.
So that could affect that game as well. Monday night, it will be very, very cold.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I do have the Rams pulling that one out here. But I mean, yeah, that game coming into Lambeau, that's going to be a game to watch, I think. Because and that's the thing, when you get late in the season,
it's going to determine a lot.
One game can determine the fate. I mean, that can either be your downfall or that springs you forward to more wins.
Yeah.
So that's why these records are so tough. And I think a lot of times when you look at other like sports analysts' predictions, you always get these predictions that a lot of teams are so bunched together, close together in records because you're trying to be as even as possible because it is the NFL. Anything can happen. But we all know, like, when you get to the season, there's surprise teams. There's teams that just tank for whatever reason. And
there's always going to be a team or two who has 4 or 5 more wins, a team or two who has 4 or 5 less.
Exactly.
Don't know why. To your surprise team's point, Detroit's probably going to be one of those for me. To finish out this division, and who I think the team is going to run away with this division, I won't say run away, but they'll win it. Minnesota Vikings, I got them at 11-6.
Yeah. Okay, I have them at 11-6 too.
Losses to New Orleans, Buffalo, New England, Detroit, Indy, and Green Bay. So you could argue that Detroit and say maybe 12-5. I'm a little skeptical to see about this coaching staff and how the guys adjust to it. But I think him coming over from the Rams and seeing what they were able to do.
Yeah.
You could argue you have weapons that are just as good, if not better, than the Rams, especially in the backfield. I think you definitely win that battle.
Yeah.
Defense, definitely not as strong, but offensively, to have the firepower in a weaker division, I think that'll propel you to number one.
Yeah, I think arguably we could have one of the most lethal offenses in the league. It's going to come down to the defense. Can they hold up, stay healthy? Can they is the 3-4 in multiple fronts that they're going to put out, is that going to be a factor in slowing teams down and they're not, I mean, they're so used to a Zimmer defense and what they can game plan for. Are we going to, surprise teams a little with what we throw at them? Mm-hmm. I mean, we did add some good pieces to that defense where we could be a formidable unit. It's just, and I originally had them at 12-5 because when it comes down to it, I think this is one of the most favorable schedules we've had in a long time. So it's time to capitalize on that. If we can't capitalize on that, then it's looking kind of rough, and that'd be a letdown, especially for this new regime coming in. Because to get a new regime and somewhat of a rebuild, but you're kind of standing pat as well, like believing in your team, or roster, I should say. I ended up going 11-6 because I gave them a loss to New England ultimately on Thanksgiving. But I do think that Thanksgiving game being at home and not in Foxborough, that could be a win. So, and, I don't know. New England is a tough team for me to judge because I don't know what Belichick's going to do this year. So
that New England game is in the middle of a tough little stretch for you.
Right, and if we can pull that out,
I think Dallas and Buffalo.
Yeah, and if we can get, at least one of those games, if not two, I mean, that's going to be a telltale sign of what this team's about. Mm-hmm. So
I could see 12-5. I'm not going to lie to you. 4 of the losses I have are primetime games just because of your quarterback and his history there.
Yeah.
But I could see you beating Indy, New England, New Orleans, and Philly. They're not definitive losses. I think the only definitive loss would be the Buffalo game.
Yeah, that's a for sure loss, I think, in my mind.
You're going to split with Green Bay.
Yeah, we'll split with Green Bay, I believe. I mean,
potentially sweep them.
Yeah, and that's going to – and you know what? That's going to be a tough way to start the season if we go out there at home and we shit the bed against Green Bay and lose that game, because that would be a tough start to the season.
You have the potential to start 0-4, I would say.
Yeah. It could go – there's a lot of different scenarios in this schedule for me that – but I'm the optimistic guy, so it's – I'm always optimistic every year. It's just I think with the talent we have on this team and the new, fresh new coaching staff and just everything that's being put into this team, I think there's gonna be a new pep in their step as a team, like wanting to go out there and show what they're capable of. So that's where my mind's at with it, and I think until I'm proven wrong, like that's what I'm going with.
Get off the NFC North, switch to the AFC North. Baltimore Ravens, on you.
I got your squad going 11-6.
Respectable.
So I think with the pieces you got coming back from injury, the stuff you did in the offseason, the draft, Baltimore, they're always a team that comes out and they take it to you every game. They don't back down. They'll come back and they'll pull it out. I mean, they're Baltimore's a team, like when they are on our schedule, like I don't look forward to that game because I know like Harbaugh has his team always prepared to play. Now we'll see now we'll see like can Bateman step up this year and be a formidable like target for Lamar. Can Lamar hone in on his accuracy, or is he just gonna stick to his running game heavily? If you add like a really good passing attack with his run game, that's might be one of my top 3 offenses in the league, because that's so hard to stop, especially with how gifted he is. And I think that defense is always solid no matter which way you cut it. It's just when the injuries hit that team last year, they were a lot better last year than what the record showed.
We finished the season losing 5-6 games in a row, I believe. You hit everything on the head. We ended up getting rid of Marquise Brown. So I'm not going to say that he was a number 1 receiver, but we are definitely in need of a number 1 receiver, and Bateman will have to step up and fill that role. With that trade, we did get an offensive lineman, so we filled a position of need with that, which was big time. 11-6, I have the same record. Losing to Buffalo, Cincy, Tampa, New Orleans, Cleveland, and Cincy.
Yeah, I think my losses were Buffalo, Cincy, Tampa, Denver, Cleveland, Cincy, Pittsburgh. So,
okay, that's 7 losses, I think.
I do have 11-6. I don't know why I flopped something around there, but
either way, fair enough.
Well, here's the thing. I think it came down to the Pittsburgh series for me. I think ultimately I have you guys sweeping them. Mm-hmm. Originally I had it split, and that's the thing. Like with Pittsburgh in that division, I don't know where to go with them. So the quarterback situation, all that, it's tough for me. So that was, and then with Deshaun and Cleveland, that division's tough to predict right now.
You have to assume it's the quarterback they have starting right now. So Brissett for Cleveland and Trubisky for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and if that's the way it goes, like those are 2 teams that are going to have losing records, I think.
Off of Baltimore, we're going to head over to Cincinnati. The AFC representatives in the Super Bowl last year. Don't really feel like they lost a lot, and I feel like they filled some holes that they had. 13-4 for me, Cincinnati.
Yeah, that. See, I was a little harsh on them because I have them at 11-6, tying with you guys, and that's only because I don't know. I just felt like last year they got to the Super Bowl. They have a very good squad, but it's just they didn't play. Like you're looking at last year, like what was their record last year? Like
10-7.
10-7. So it wasn't like they were that good. They just made a run at the end. I understand. They have like very talented pieces on their team. Mm-hmm. But it's what did they do to the O-line this year that's going to be any better than it was last year?
They brought free agents over. Lyle Collins, a couple of other guys that are.
Collins for sure. Collins, and they'll help out, and it's probably and it's gonna be an upgrade over Riley Reef. But I mean, and Burrow's only gonna get better. I get that. So it's just, I don't know. I just think
all the weapons are there. The defense is a little better. O-line's a little better.
I mean, you still got Eli Apple.
I can see 11-6 still.
But and that was me basing it off of, you know what, this is the NFL. 13-4. I mean, 13-4. You are.
That's for the elite.
Like, you're elite. So, and I think 11-6. I mean, 12-5 would be probably more like.
This is just one of those teams for me where this is just the way the schedule shook out.
Okay, I see that.
There's not really a definitive loss in here. I mean, Buffalo, Kansas City, maybe.
So and I gave them a loss to Dallas, and I just only think that because I think it's going to be a game Dallas plays out of their mind and like just beats them.
Week 2.
So and then they catch them at the right time in the season.
Let me go through this real quick. Actually, home in Pittsburgh, 2 on the road, Dallas and the Jets. Home for Miami, 2 on the road, Baltimore, New Orleans. Home at Atlanta. If we're gonna assume that this is set for this Cleveland game, that's a W on the road at Cleveland. And then home for Carolina before your bye. I mean, that's honestly, you're probably undefeated if you can get through that Baltimore game. And that Miami game, depending on what they look like.
Yeah.
Cleveland's going to be tough. Their defense is tough. They did bring back Clowney.
And that's why I gave Cleveland the win against Cincinnati. You know, I have them, I have them splitting. But I think one of those games, Cleveland will beat them. Because when it comes down to division games, those games are always the toughest because you know each other so well and the tendencies and everything. So, and I could see I have them beating.
Brissett's not bad either. I mean, let's not act like he's a terrible quarterback.
No, he's shown that he's capable of winning games.
He's for sure capable,
and he's got the talent on that team to make it happen more so than what he had in Miami or in
Indianapolis or wherever he was.
Yeah.
New England.
So, but yeah, I have 11-6 for Cincinnati. I just think for me it's more of that's like their floor.
Okay, that's fair. How you feel about Cleveland?
Cleveland, I have them at 7-10, and that's because, you know, I'm going off of Deshaun not being there for a good part of the season. You know, I have like they're splitting with Cincy, they're splitting with Baltimore. They're taking 2 losses to Pittsburgh. And,
ooh, really?
Yeah, and I just think
interesting.
So with that one, when it comes to Pittsburgh, I still have faith in Tomlin as a coach and what he can do with whatever roster he's given. Mm-hmm. So, and that's why I have Pittsburgh, even though I don't like their quarterback situation that great. It's just their defense is still strong, always is strong under him. They have playmakers on the outside, Najee Harris. I mean, so that team is no slouch. It's just, what's our quarterback going to give us? So, and I think Tomlin is by far one of the greatest coaches to ever coach. So, but Cleveland, they're either going to be 10-7, 11-6, or they're going to be that 7-10, 6-11. It's all depending on what the Deshaun timeline is going to be.
I agree. I might have been a little generous. I think if they did have Deshaun, they would be right up there in the 12-5 range. But I did go 9-8 for Cleveland.
So do you think Cleveland with Deshaun is better than Cincinnati?
Yeah. Deshaun's a bad man.
He is, but it's, unless you're Tom Brady, you can go to any team and pretty much do whatever. But a lot of times you need these quarterbacks to come in, get familiar with the offense, get familiar with his wide receivers, because I don't think you can just go in and start throwing the ball to anyone and know their tendencies on certain routes and everything. I mean, and who knows, is Cooper going to be the dynamic number 1 for him?
We'll see, man. He's been a disappointment for me.
So it's tough. I mean, Cleveland is in a situation where it could go one way or the other. I mean, you're either going to have a losing record or you probably have a winning record. So But like I said, with some of these teams, it's like you look at their history and it's like it's still the Browns. Like until they show me otherwise, like I can't put my faith in them.
I agree. I mean, recent history will say a little different, but I agree.
But
both them and Pittsburgh have around 500, 9-8 for Cleveland, 7-10 for Pittsburgh. Both teams where I think the roster around the quarterback is good enough, but that quarterback is really holding them back.
Yeah,
that'll be a theme throughout this episode here with a couple of these teams in some other divisions. And, I mean, even Detroit, I mean, that's a team where I think the quarterback could potentially hold them back. But I have them at 9-8, which is probably generous. Pittsburgh, 7-10 for me.
I had 8-9.
8-9, so, yeah, right around the same. I do have Baltimore sweeping them. I think you said you gave them the split earlier.
I gave them a split, and
that's probably the difference
they're either 7-10 or 8-9 for me. So, because I could see Baltimore's, sweeping them, but it's just like I'm thinking about Tomlin. Like it's more so me thinking about Tomlin and his coaching than it is about that team as a whole.
If it's not Tomlin, it's Belichick as the coach. You're gonna go into a game respecting the most and like, okay, we got this, but we don't got this.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a mastermind over there.
Exactly, and like it being a division game, like you know each other. It's just. I don't think Tomlin gets the respect that he deserves, honestly, which is a disappointment because, I mean...
Our organization is quiet. If any other organization had a quarterback like Ben that was playing like Ben for the past 3 years, you'd be hearing about it every day.
Exactly.
We're trying to get rid of him. We need a replacement, this and that. They kept it quiet. Tomlin kept his head down.
And the way he even handled Antonio Brown and how it got hot at the end, obviously, but it was just like there was nothing Tomlin could do anymore to keep that under wraps. Like he's so good at like keeping it within the team.
Once it got to the internet, there's nothing you can do.
Exactly, and you can't control someone like Antonio Brown like that. Like you either have your head on your shoulders correctly, or you're just a loose cannon. You don't know what that dude's gonna do.
Exactly.
So, and I mean, shoot, so. Yeah, it's more so me thinking about Tomlin as the coach and how he puts that team together and makes them play for him. So that's why I got him at 8-9 right now. I'm splitting with Baltimore, which, Baltimore could be a team that people are shocked by this year because they could be a 12-5, 13-4 team.
I think karma's going to be good to us this year. We had all those injuries we dealt with last year. Mm-hmm. There's definitely potential for us to run away. I keep saying that. There's definitely potential for us to win this division.
Yeah, I think so as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if Baltimore comes away, winning the division, going to the playoffs, and making some noise because they've shown they're capable of doing that on a year-to-year basis. It's just, some years like last year, you get hit with the injury bug, and it's not a pretty sight, and there's nothing you can do about it, but they're a team that is getting so many pieces back, plus you are reloading the roster in the way you see fit. So that defense is going to be scary. I mean, they're not going to give up many points, I don't think. So, and I'm interested to see what Kyle Hamilton can come in that defense and do. So
I'm very interested to see. NFC North, we both have Minnesota winning that division.
Mm-hmm.
You have two teams at 11-6 in the AFC North. Who do you have winning this division?
As it stands right now, my gut is telling me Baltimore.
Baltimore?
Yeah, I don't know what it is about like Cincinnati. Like I know Burrow is going to be, a one-of-a-kind quarterback for when his career is said and done. And you got Jamar Chase, you got T. Higgins, like. But when I look at them though, it's just like they're not a team that scares me. Like I don't get that. I don't know.
They took you down, or you took them down to last-second field goal, maybe.
Yeah,
I think Joe Burrow threw for 800 yards on us in 2 games, and 9 touchdowns. So,
and like I said, it's not, and maybe that's me throwing shade or disrespect them a little bit, but they did go to the Super Bowl. I get that. It's I like Baltimore as a whole better than I do Cincinnati. I just think I like that tough-nosed football that Baltimore plays.
I do too. I don't think it's a fluke for Cincinnati. I think they will be here for a long time, given that they were so young as well.
Yeah.
But we held that number one spot down for a long time with a lot of key players, star players, starters out of that lineup. So
Yeah, exactly. So
I think this is definitely going to come down to the end, but I think Cincinnati will come away on top.
Okay.
We'll be right there in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think you're gonna get both of those teams in the playoffs for sure.
So from the north, let's head to the south. Starting off with the NFC, Atlanta Falcons. Predictions for this team? You're laughing already. That's pretty much what this team is going to be. A laughing stock.
I got them at 4-13.
Okay.
I got them beating New Orleans, Carolina, Seattle, and San Francisco. And a few of those I feel like are just going to be tough wins that they somehow come out with the W. I mean, and it's no disrespect to like Mariota or anything. Like I like him as a bridge quarterback that they got right now. You got Drake London, you got Kyle Pitts, Cordero. It's just, I mean, what's their defense going to look like? Really, they weren't that good last year. You didn't do a whole lot this year to make it any better. And when you have your franchise leading quarterback take off for Indy, it's not a good sign for what you guys are doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's not much to say. They're just not a good team.
I have them at 3-14. So that means I have Chicago at 1-16 because I do have them beating Chicago. So Seattle, Carolina, Chicago. That San Francisco win, that's a little surprising for me. I think this team is a little talented. It has it in spots. We're gonna see if Desmond Ritter's gonna get a chance to play.
Mm-hmm.
I do like Mariota as a bridge quarterback though, but
I do. I think especially when you saw him play a little bit in Vegas,
mm-hmm.
like he's shown he was capable. Like he can run very well. I mean he's not a slouch of a passer. He hasn't been. He's just not your top elite quarterback. He's just your run-of-the-mill average quarterback who's you're not really going to have a terrific season with him, but you could definitely be around 500. I just don't think he brings enough to that team with the pieces around him to propel them to anything spectacular.
not at all. I mean, the weapons around him aren't great. You obviously have Kyle Pitts. You drafted Drake London, but other than that, it's pretty bleak.
Yeah.
No Calvin Ridley. You traded Justin Gage. There's not a lot to do over there. Carolina.
That's
a team I had, in my head I thought would, be pretty decent. I like their defense. I don't think Darnold's that terrible, but he's another one of these quarterbacks who I think is going to hold this team back from being better than they look like on paper. I have them at 5-12. Wins against the Giants, the Saints, the Falcons, the Seahawks, and Tampa Bay. I have them beating Tampa Bay at the end of the year.
That's a tough one. Wow.
So this is when I maybe should have went over. But I just
I'm surprised by that, because I think this Carolina team is booty meat.
I feel like their defense is still really good.
I mean, that could be your reasoning. I have them beating Atlanta, New Orleans, Detroit, and Seattle. You think about it, they still have DJ Moore, you still have CMC. They're not the roster is not bad. It's still pretty talented. It's just they don't have that. And I'm like I said, when it comes down to the coach, Matt Rule, I'm not a believer in. I believe he's strictly a college coach. He's shown already he can't be an NFL coach. Can't manage the personalities of an NFL team. So
I'm going to go ahead and feel comfortable with this 5. I'm not going to feel comfortable that the 5th win is going to be against Tampa. But looking at the schedule, it's not that bad. And their team is very talented, both offensively and defensively.
Yeah. And this is a team where I may be too harsh on them. Like, it just...
You said 4-13?
4-13.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just some of these teams...
Their offensive line is still terrible.
Yeah, and
they were a bottom 10 team, and you had one pick in the top 5 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of spots to fill and didn't really get a chance to fill a lot of them. New Orleans Saints, one of your arch nemesis. Is that a word? New Orleans Saints.
I got them at 9-8. Can New Orleans go into London and beat Minnesota? Because it's kind of a toss-up game right now.
It is.
So, it being a neutral site overseas, like,
I do have them beating you, by the way.
that affects how teams play. So, as a Vikings fan, I have Minnesota beating them there, but I could see that going either way. It's going to come down to who has the better game, Winston or Cousins.
Mm-hmm.
So,
put your money on that, folks. New Orleans, I have 10-7.
Okay.
Losing Armstead, but you replace him with another offensive lineman. Maybe not the same skill set, but you're filling a hole there. I'm not sure why they don't move Pete back out to the left tackle. I mean, that's nerd talk, but
Yeah.
I thought he did well out there coming out of Stanford. A team, like I said, has Tampa Bay's number, but it is going to come down to Jameis. New coach. I do like the weapons offensively. If Michael Thomas gets his head right, his ankle right, whatever the issue is.
And then you got Olave, and then you got Jarvis Landry.
Yeah,
you got Honey Badger on the back end of the defense.
Mm-hmm.
Like they are good on paper.
Yeah.
It's just
probably would expect this team to make the playoffs in the NFC.
Yeah,
sure.
They could, yeah, and like I said, it's just we didn't get a full season to see what Winston was capable of last year, and it's going to be for me, it's going to come down to how his recovery was this offseason, and is he progressing his game even further than it was going to be last year? Like,
who's the backup? They did move Taysom to tight end full time.
Okay, so couldn't even tell you their backup, honestly, because I'm just so used to seeing Taysom as their dual guy.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm glad they made the wise choice of moving him to tight end.
He wasn't the answer. You mentioned Tampa Bay winning this division. What record you got him having?
12-5.
I have him at 13-4, losing to New Orleans, Kansas City, Cincinnati, and then Carolina. Maybe that's just because I couldn't have him going 14-3. But this schedule, the way it shakes out, I mean, it's very feasible that they can go 14-3, especially bringing back the weapons. If God was going to come back healthy later in the season, that's when a lot of their tougher games are.
And see, for me, don't mean to cut you off, but for me, when I was doing these record predictions, I wasn't going through every single schedule and breaking down like when exactly they were playing in the season, who's at whose house type deal. I was just strictly going off of, okay, division games, and then do I think this team is capable of beating this team or not?
Well, we got Tampa winning the NFC South. I have them at 13-4. You have them at
12-5.
12-5. You brought up Houston. Let's get to it right now. What you got for them?
I have them at 1-16.
I have 2-15. I agree. They got a lot of guys they brought over in the offseason, 20-plus moves, but none of them are really stars. None of them are really going to... I mean, if I'm a Houston fan, I honestly do feel good about what I did in this offseason.
Yeah.
You filled holes. You have a lot of good role players. You drafted well, I believe. Stingley and offensive lineman, I believe, right? Kenyon Green.
Yep.
So definitely fill some holes. If you feel comfortable going forward with your quarterback, remind me his name, please.
Davis Mills.
Davis Mills. I mean, obviously you get off Deshaun Watson. That's just once in a generation type talent that you just had to let go. But Lovie Smith, this is going to be a rough year. I have you winning Chicago and Jacksonville. Other than that, I do think you're going to be competitive in a lot of these games, though.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they're not going to get blown out every game. You know, it's still the NFL. You got pro athletes out there, earning a paycheck. So,
this team played hard last year. They didn't really.
And like I said, this could be a team that has 5 wins for some reason or 6 wins. I don't. Whatever the case may be, do they catch a team that's injury plagued, or
right.
Do they catch a team who's just not meshing?
And Davis Mills isn't terrible.
No.
Lovie Smith's track record recently isn't great, but he does have a history of being successful in this league.
Yep. Yeah, I think Davis Mills is a quarterback who's kind of just like flying under the radar. Like teams like
he's underrated for sure.
Like not respecting him, because
he's a Gardner Minshew type.
Yeah, I thought he was respectable last year. He just, he's a quarterback that I think you give him the correct pieces, he'll shock you. So.
I think he has the potential. Indianapolis, 10-7 for me. I think the addition of Matt Ryan will be beneficial. A team that definitely should have been in the playoffs last year. You shit the bed the last week of the season, losing to Jacksonville. Everybody's going to blame that on Carson Wentz. Whatever, rightfully so. That's your quarterback. I do think this team will be right on the cusp of the playoffs this year. We're going to go through it in a little bit to figure out who we do have going to the playoffs. I think this team is solid, man. If Matt Ryan is going to be in a great position behind this offensive line and with the running back like Jonathan Taylor, you do have good weapons. Pittman, Campbell, T.Y. I think they have back as well. So reliable guys out there on the outside. Defense is always solid. Darius Leonard, probably one of the most underrated players in my opinion. I never hear him get talked about, but a great linebacker. The back end is good, bringing over Gilmore. That should definitely be a nice addition. So 10-7 here for Indiana for me, or Indianapolis.
I got 11-6. I think they're the clear-cut favorite in this division. I think Matt Ryan will have a little bit of a rejuvenation this year. I'm not saying it's going to be spectacular, but because you got Jonathan Taylor to hand the ball off to, so that's going to take some pressure off you. You went to a perfect situation with how good that line is in front of you. You got Pittman, you got what's his name? It doesn't even matter, but they got weapons. That defense to me is super solid. Like they're just an overall sound football team. I think 11-6 is. They could be 10-7, I think, but I think 11-6 is what I'm gonna go with, just because I think Matt Ryan's better than Wentz. He kind of pushes you over to give you a couple more wins. You play Jacksonville twice, you play Houston twice. I think you split with Tennessee possibly. I gave them a win against Philadelphia, but I could see that being a loss.
Okay. That's fair enough. Do they play Vegas? I think I have them getting swept by the AFC West, except for Vegas.
Yep, I do too.
Splitting with Tennessee, just like you do. New England, Pittsburgh, Dallas, and Denver.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I have them losing to Kansas City, Tennessee, Denver, Las Vegas, Dallas, and the Chargers. So.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get to it in about 2 minutes, but I do think I was a little too generous with Tennessee. Moving on from Indy, though, Jacksonville at 2-15 for me. Wins against Houston and Tennessee.
Okay.
The Tennessee game, just because it's at the week 18. I think Tennessee may be sitting a lot of their guys, according to what I have them going here. So 2-15 for Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence, Dougie P is coming over. I think you overpaid some guys and you didn't draft well. You overdrafted guys, but you have more weapons on both sides of the ball. I don't like the loss of Miles Jack. I thought he was a good player.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see. This team could definitely have 2 or 3 more wins added onto here, depending on what Dougie P brings over. I think Trevor Lawrence under that last regime was almost in a Sam Bradford, Jeff Fisher situation where they're just not going to do anything for you. So this is going to be a nice change for Trevor Lawrence in that offense.
Yeah, and that's why I have them at 4-13. I think they're still a pretty bad team. It's just, I think you're going to get a different version, a more upbeat version, not someone who's scared to throw the ball, not someone who's timid. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have a respectable year. But they still got an overall pretty bad roster. So 4-13 for me, beating Houston, Giants, Detroit, and Tennessee.
Week 18, Tennessee?
Yeah, that would be the one for me. I can't see them beating them any other way. But you get these division games like this where you just you catch them at the right time.
Yeah.
So
speaking of catching somebody at the right time, we'll talk about Tennessee to finish out the AFC and NFC South. I have them at 11-6. Buffalo, Indy, Kansas City, Denver, Green Bay, and Jacksonville are their 6 losses, but week 6 is their bye. So if you can catch these guys towards the end of the season, they're going to be tired. They're going to have 3 primetime games in that span. So if you can catch them somewhere in there, you can get a chance to take a win or 2 off this team.
Yeah.
A team I feel I might have been a little bit too generous with the loss of A.J. Brown to Philadelphia and not bringing Julio back.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry coming off injury. But another one of those teams where I think the culture is there, similar to Baltimore, Pittsburgh. I think Vrabel has earned his respect in this league. Not saying he's on that Tomlin level, but I think he'll have this team ready to play every week. You do bring over Robert Woods, so maybe him and Treylon can replace some of that productivity you had last year with those receivers. But I might be too generous with this.
Yeah, I have them at 10-7, but I could also see it being like a 9-8 situation. I have them losing to Buffalo, Indy, Jacksonville, Las Vegas, Green Bay, Philadelphia, and the Chargers. So I think Tennessee just Derrick Henry obviously, is a beast. I don't know what Treylon brings to the table. I kind of know what I'm getting with Robert Woods, but I'm not a guy who will stand on the table and scream for Ryan Tannehill.
My captain.
Like, he's a formidable quarterback. It's just like, I think he gets away with it because he has Henry. It's just I don't know. Like, I'm not saying Tannehill's bad by any means. Like, he's very good. He's very good. He can get it done. It's just, when you look at him last year, it was a different version than 2 years ago. So I don't know. I'm not the biggest Tannehill believer. Very capable of getting the job done, getting some wins. I just don't see Tennessee being that team that's gonna somehow, be a top seed in the AFC.
I just think they fought through adversity last year. They did lose Derrick Henry for the second half. Julio Jones didn't play for a lot of those games. Matt Ryan's not a quarterback addition like Russell Wilson,
No.
He's not that much better than Carson Wentz. I think he's going to make better decisions. He'll put the ball in the right places, and I think he's smarter than Carson Wentz. And I think that will account for a couple more wins. But the AFC did get a lot tougher over this offseason.
It did. And I won't put my money on Indianapolis making a deep run or anything, but I think in that division, though, I do have more faith in Matt Ryan with the pieces he has around him than I do Ryan Tannehill with what he's got around him.
Indianapolis has had one of the better front offices over the past 5 years or so. I mean, after Peyton Manning, you draft Andrew Luck and then him retiring, and you've been able to be relevant with these one-year quarterbacks. Filling the rest of the roster, doing well with your draft picks, trading guys away. I think it's very respectable. So I'm not mad at your Indianapolis pick. We've done North, we've done the South. Let's hit East.
All right.
Dallas Cowboys. How you feel about them?
Oh, man, Dallas. It's a team I hate, and I feel like I was too generous with, but I have them at 11-6. I just think they have a lot of good pieces on that team still. I like Prescott. He's just not. He's kind of like a Kirk Cousins in a sense, where, I mean, that San Francisco game in the playoffs sticks out like a sore thumb. He just, when you have to show up and you just go and shit the bed like he did, it was one of the poorest performances by him throughout his career. And I don't believe in Mike McCarthy, but talent-wise, though, I just think that it looks on paper as an 11-6 team. But there's going to be games where you get a Stephen A. laughing because, wow, how did you lose that game? How did you lose that game?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, that's how their seasons go. So
every year.
So for me, like I said, I think I'm too generous, but to me, Dallas, in reality, if it comes down to it, and I have a gun to my head, I'm going to be picking them as 9-8 because that's overall what I think they're going to put out.
I have 10-7, losing to Tampa, Cincy, the Rams, Philly, Green Bay, Tennessee, and the Vikings.
Okay.
A team I'm not confident in at all. Zeke is not Zeke anymore. The offensive line is not the offensive line. You kind of stretch to get Tyler Smith, even though I do like him. You didn't really replace Amari Cooper. You're going to lose one of your receivers for at least a month or two, I feel like, and Michael Gallup. You lost Cedric Wilson to Miami, and Dak is a guy who needs all of his weapons to be really good. It seems like when he doesn't have those weapons, a lot can go bad for this team. The defense I don't trust. The offense I really don't trust. The coach I really, really don't trust. So I don't know, man. 10-7 I feel like is generous, and I feel more comfortable with what you said, 9-8, 8-9.
And that's the thing, like, and I gave him a win. I gave him a win at Lambeau, but I think that definitely is a loss when it comes down to it. I think it's going to be funny if Mike McCarthy goes into Lambeau and beats the Packers.
He's not going to get fired because Jerry just loves to have people who don't fucking bring anything to the table. But if he can go beat beat Green Bay at Lambeau, contract extension immediately. 10-7 for me, 11-6 for you. New York Giants. I am 6-11.
Exactly what I have.
You have 6-11 too.
Yep.
This is a team I think is talented. I mean, they did just lose Bradbury to Philly.
Yeah.
We knew that was coming. But I think I'm too generous with this. If there's teams like Carolina who I feel they're going to go 5-12, I think Giants are right around the 5-12 range.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Jones not a guy that I trust. You lost Evan Ingram. Your receivers can't stay healthy. Saquon can't stay healthy. I don't really know. You have a new coach coming in. We're going to see how he does, Brian Daboll. But this is the last year. We mentioned it before. Daniel Jones is probably going to be the starter for sure going into the season. I'm interested to see what these guys can do. Not a lot on the paper, really. I just think this division isn't great. So
yeah,
I think
it's
I
never
give them a
really
couple wins
great.
there.
Yeah.
And then looking at the schedule, it's not the hardest schedule. So 6-11 for me for the Giants.
Yeah, everything you said. I mean, 6-11 here, so I don't have much else to say. This division is kind of always one of the weaker ones.
It is. And, I mean, to your Cowboys' point, to probably have the biggest fan base in the country.
And that's why,
It's got to sting.
I think, though, that's why Dallas gets away with
11-6.
the way these records that are always predicted for them because
Do you have a sweep in New York and Washington?
I actually have them splitting with the Giants.
Okay.
I think the Giants when they play the Giants, I think that game is always, for some reason, it's a bad product of football when you watch it.
Why is it? Oh, it's so ugly every time.
It's so bad, and that's why I think the Giants will come away with at least one of those games. Probably more so in New York than at Dallas. But
The New York game is at home, Monday Night Football, Week 3.
yeah, I have. So yeah, I think I have those are that. I think they'll split with the Giants, but
Okay. How do you feel about Philly?
I gave Dallas a split there as well. But I could see Philly taking both those because I think that Philly's a better team.
What do you have the record being?
Philly, I got 11-6.
Okay, same.
So I think Philly wins that division.
Who do you have them losing to?
Philadelphia,
Yep.
Indy, Washington, Arizona, Giants, Dallas, and New Orleans.
Wow, we're different. I got Indy, Green Bay, Tennessee, Dallas, New Orleans, Minnesota.
Okay. Damn, you gave Minnesota the win at Philly week 2?
I did.
That's actually one of my losses for
That's
Minnesota.
that might be one of my favorite games this week. It's Monday night at home for Philly, too.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a tough one for the Vikings, especially coming off of a week 1 Green Bay game.
I don't feel good about it.
That's why when you look at these schedules, it's a lot of these games when it comes down to it could go one way or the other. It's just
I did have you losing that game originally, but I just couldn't see Philly going 12-5. I mean that's elite.
But it's
that's
possible.
Elite territory.
Though.
I know,
It's
but
possible.
it just seems too elite.
But you think about if Hurts can up his game a little bit this year, he's got the weapons. He can run the ball. You got Miles Sanders, who's I'm not a big Sanders fan, but he is good.
Boston Scott, A.J. Brown.
Yeah. I mean, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert.
Yeah.
It's one of the more lethal offenses in the league.
You're not lying. They just got Bradbury on defense.
And when you come from a weak division like that, I just think they could possibly sweep that whole division.
I think they're gonna go at least 4-2. I mean, I got them splitting with
Winning
Dallas right now.
Yeah, winning record for sure. I mean, I did give Washington a win over Philadelphia just for the fact that I think Wentz takes one
revenge
of them.
game.
Yeah, Wentz takes one of them for some reason.
Good God.
Not confident in it, but
All right, so both of us have 11-6 for Philly. Talked about Wentz and Washington. Where you got them at?
Washington I got 6-11.
Wow, me too. So we're right on the same page with this. Not a lot to say. I think you overdrafted Jahan Dotson.
Mm-hmm.
I think you do have the best receiver in this division. Running back is okay. Defensive line is good. I like the defensive line. I like the coach. Secondary is solid. It comes down to the quarterback again.
Yeah.
I think again, a weak division, so that's why I have you at 6-11 and maybe not 4-13.
Hey, and Washington could be a team that goes 8-9, 9-8.
They could. Wentz isn't as. He has his moments. I'll give him that. He's not.
He does. He has games where he plays out of his mind.
He's not complete dog shit. Like
no, and he's got a strong arm.
Like,
I mean, it's just he's just not there mentally.
He's a bad decision maker.
Yeah, it's just you can't trust him.
This guy almost won an MVP for God's sake one year. I mean, I don't understand.
How do you do that?
I don't understand it. Could be Dougie P. Could be Trevor Lawrence. We'll see. So you have Philly winning this division, huh? Okay. Moving on from the NFC East, we'll go to the AFC East. Buffalo Bills, potential Super Bowl representatives. What did you have here for their record?
14-3.
Damn, we're on the same page, man. 14-3 for me. Losses to Miami, Cleveland, and New England.
Buffalo losses for me. Rams, Kansas City, New England.
Those Rams KC games, those are tough for me to decide.
Yeah, I just think I think regular season those teams get Buffalo, but I think you see them in the playoffs, and I think you're going to get a different Buffalo team. Like, I just think once the playoffs hit, they're going to finally click this year.
This is a bad team right here, man.
Yeah.
14-3. Honestly, I could have put 17-0, but that's just not realistic.
It's not realistic. I think
I really feel comfortable with 15-2.
Yeah, but I could also see it going, 13-4, just because that's still elite territory. You get slipped up one or two games, and maybe injuries, maybe whatever happens. I don't know, but you gotta have. I mean, Diggs just has to play elite football this year. Like, he kind of was I'm not gonna say no show last year, but he didn't watch one of their games and say like, wow, Diggs is popping off the screen.
That other receiver they had against the Chiefs, do you know his name? That motherfucker went off that game for a touchdown.
Oh yeah, Gabriel Davis. Yep.
That's what it was. Yeah, I was gonna say Tyler Davis.
And I like him too, but I'm excited to see James Cook in this offense.
Let James Cook. They needed a running back severely. This team does not even look to run the ball. Singletary did have his moments last year, but I just think that's a system flaw, not really a personnel flaw.
But you gotta throw in the run game though. You can't just be one dimensional,
especially in that weather.
Yeah, especially in that weather. And I think that's been their downfall. Is like, what they're gonna do. Like, they're trying to get it to Diggs. They're trying to get it to the playmakers like
Knox, Davis,
yeah,
Beasley. But
if
I think if you can get the 15-2, which is a possibility,
if they get the number 1 seed, I think it's going to be hard to go into Buffalo and even have a chance of beating them.
It's going to be extremely hard.
So, if you give them the number 1 seed, I think they're definitely going to be Super Bowl
favorites.
Yeah. So,
Miami
7-10.
You cheating off my notes or what?
No.
Same, 7-10. Another situation where the roster around the quarterback is great, but the quarterback is the questionable position here. New coach coming in as well, so we're going to see how that goes. Tua, Teddy, really not guys with strong arms that can get the ball downfield to your weapons that you have out there, but I think, maybe instead of taking a 7-step drop, we take a 5-step drop, let it go early, let those guys go run under and catch it.
Yeah.
That might be that might be the answer. You bring over left tackle Armstead from New Orleans.
Hey.
You have a lot of good weapons, man. Gesicki you brought back on the tag, I believe. There's really not any excuse for this team to be in the playoffs, but 7-10. So what will the excuse be?
I don't know, because I could argue that this team could go 9-8 as well. Possibly 10-7, depending on if they're clicking, how the coaches bringing the team along. Does Tua take a step forward, and is he playing better with all these weapons he has? Like, I don't know, but I just have him at 7-10 because even though you got Cheetah there now, you still got Waddle. I mean, you got Gesicki, but I'm not a big believer in Tua right now. He's got to show me something. So I think the excuse for not making the playoffs will come down to Tua.
If it does come down to Tua, when do you think they pull him? Do you think they get Teddy in there, a proven quarterback?
They could, but I think...
What do you think the problem with Tua would be? Just not producing or turnovers or...
I think
because Teddy's probably not going to put up better numbers.
No, they're probably around the same for numbers, but I think
if Tua has problems taking care of the ball, we know Teddy doesn't have.
And that's what I would say. Tua, I think Tua. You could probably watch him this year, and he might be forcing stuff.
First 4 games are tough for Miami: New England, Baltimore, Buffalo, Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for Tua to be put in that position, I don't know if the city's going to really be behind him like that. So I can see, then the Jets and Minnesota after that with Pittsburgh. So those are your first 7 games.
Yeah.
Jets, don't underestimate them. That defense is solid. We'll talk about them in just a second. Minnesota,
Mm-hmm.
we have them winning the division. Pittsburgh, we talked about them earlier, that defense and that coaching staff.
Right.
That tradition, everything about them. So this could really get ugly for this Miami team.
Mm-hmm.
The schedule is tough to start. It does ease up towards the back end, but you still have games with the 49ers and the Chargers and Buffalo, as well as New England and Green Bay.
And I will say, Miami can put great games together. Just look at last year. One game sticks out, and it was against Baltimore.
I was so sick to my stomach watching that. Did they have a lineman score a touchdown? That's how you know shit is just fucking disgusting.
Like that game, Miami played out of their minds that game.
Washed us.
Like, that was video game type play.
Washed us.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, this team, they have that capability, but they can't seem to string those together.
I think they made a bad move firing that coach too, Brian Flores.
Oh, for sure.
So
look at the roster you worked with.
The schedule is not easy with the karma of doing that. I just don't think you're a playoffs team this year. 7-10.
7-10. Yeah, I can't say much else.
The GOAT, Billy Goat. What do you have him going?
10-7.
10-7.
Yeah.
Explain.
I just see. Well, I had him at 9-8 originally because I gave the Vikings that Thanksgiving win originally, but
Prime time.
I moved it to the New England side, so that's why they end up at 10-7 for me. So I have them losing to Baltimore, Cincinnati, Miami, Buffalo, the Jets, Indianapolis, and Las Vegas.
We have a lot of the similar records, but the teams we have them losing to are a lot different.
Yeah.
That's funny. Miami, Baltimore, Detroit, Jets, Arizona, Vegas, Cincinnati, Buffalo.
Okay.
9-8 for me. Definitely a team I can see being tough on defense, but I think they're a little slow on that side. Offensively, I think they're a little slow and have, lack of weapons on that side as well.
It worries me, too, because the latest report out of New England is people are dumbfounded and don't know what the hell Bill Belichick is doing with the offensive side of the ball.
Talking about their auditioning for offensive coordinators, or he's gonna,
yeah. So I don't get what's going on with that because I'm not a New England guy, so I don't know what that all means or whatever. But so it's kind of like, and I do have questions about their offense. Like I just don't. It seems to me like they don't have a lot of pieces over there that.
There's a lot of solid guys, but no superstars.
Yeah, and I think that's
the New England way, though.
It is, and and obviously you had Tom Brady as a superstar who can get things done with whoever. But
that's the difference now.
Exactly. What can Mac Jones do?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think 10-7, 9-8 around there is what I have them.
That's fair. Maybe a surprise for some people here. I have the Jets at 8-9.
Okay, I have them at 7-10.
Okay, so. I looked at this schedule just so I didn't think I was going crazy, and I think it's very reasonable for 8-9 for this team.
Hey, like I said, that was a team I had that they could go 8-9, 9-8 because I like the coach. I think he's the perfect guy for that team.
Yeah.
I think they're doing great things with that defense over there. You got Sauce, you got Jermaine Johnson. It's going to come down to Zach Wilson. He's going to be the difference maker in games you win or lose.
That's the theme of this episode. Because I could see it going 5 wins to, 8 wins, really.
Which, they do have a lot of talent on that offense. So, it's just, is he going to step up or...
Robert Saleh's a guy where I don't see his team really being that bad 2 years in a row. He's got more of his guys in there.
They'll make a jump this year for sure.
Yeah. So... I think 5 wins is the basement for this team. Would you say 7-10?
7-10.
Very reasonable. I like what they did in the draft. I like what they did in the offseason. Like you said, I like their coach. They got Breece Hall in there, Garrett Wilson in there. So they definitely have some weapons for Zach Wilson. Comes down to him. Mekhi Becton they have coming back as well.
Yep.
So he'll have some protection on that left side. Jets, 8-9 for me. Could be a surprise, but we agree somewhat.
Yeah.
Who do you have winning this division? Buffalo?
Buffalo for sure. No
Okay.
question. Don't even have to talk about that.
Okay, easy. Last but not least, going from the East to the Wild West. And we're going to start in the NFC.
Okay.
Finish with a bang in the AFC West.
All right. Sounds good.
Arizona Cardinals, I have 7-10.
Ooh.
And probably my most disappointing team this year. You seem a little surprised by that.
That's just because what I predicted. I have it flip flopped to 10-7, and that's just because I think they're gonna hit a stride in the back end of the season.
I think that this team has been a team that has excelled in the beginning part of the season and then tailed off towards the end.
Okay.
So not having Hopkins for the beginning part of the season and trusting Marquise to be your number one, I think that's going to be tough. And then when they're tailing off, I mean, I think just Kyler might be in injury protocol. Marquise Brown, I mean.
And it was a team I probably was
J.J. Watt for
maybe
sure.
a little too generous with, but my thinking was they have a rough start, but they finish strong.
So reverse of what they've been doing?
Yeah.
You lost Chandler Jones too, which is really, really tough.
Really tough, yep. Still got J.J. Watt, though. I mean.
Who plays more this year? J.J. Watt, Sammy Watkins.
I'm going to go J.J.
Okay. I got J.J. at about 5 weeks.
Yeah, that is a tough one with his injuries, though. I don't know. I believe in the Kyler to Hollywood connection. I just think, and then when you get D-Hop back, if it all goes swimmingly, this offense could be. It has great firepower potential. Yes. Yeah. D-Hop is, in my opinion, the best receiver in the league, but I'll give the title to Adams right now just because of production. But to have a number 2 like Marquise that can just take the top off, and he's been waiting for a guy who can get him the ball down the field accurately. Yep. Man. I hear you. I mean, shit.
10-7 though. What do you have them losing to?
New England, Kansas City, Vegas, New Orleans, the Rams. I got Seattle squeaking one out, and Denver.
You haven't beaten the Chargers, huh?
Yeah, I just think
and
that
Tampa.
I just think that I think it's gonna happen.
You're gonna come on strong, huh? You have them. Okay. LA Rams, Super Bowl champs. How you feel they're gonna defend their championship this year?
So originally I had them at 11-6, but I gave them the W in Green Bay ultimately. So I went 12-5.
Likewise, Buffalo, Kansas City, Tampa, Chargers, San Fran are the 5 losses for me. Just because San Fran's a tough matchup for them. Those other 4 teams, I think, are very evenly matched across the board, and it'll just come down to who pulls it out at the end. I think they have potential to see all these teams in the postseason at one point or another, depending on how things shake out. But 12-5 for me, I agree. I think they're going to have a little trouble replacing Robert Woods out there.
Yeah.
That's really my only concern.
That's the only concern, really, yeah. I mean, you add Bobby Wagner to that defense, though, and it's just... You said you got them losing to Tampa Bay?
Yep. Buffalo, KC, Tampa Bay, Chargers, and San Fran.
So I have a couple upset losses. So I got KC, New Orleans, Arizona, Seattle, and San Fran. And I gave them the Seattle one because I just think it's division games.
You said Seattle?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Division games, and I just think... Look, when it comes to these division games... You kind of sometimes they just go out there and they lay an egg, and the Rams have done that before. I mean,
the Rams are definitely known for doing that, and that's in between a Vegas and Kansas City game.
Yeah,
Vegas being Thursday night football, so I could definitely see them bypassing some important information, not paying attention to the details for that game.
And I'm not, and
that's
I'm
a trap
saying,
game if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like Seattle, because Seattle's gonna be pretty boo boo, but Pete Carroll, I like and trust him as a coach still. I mean, he's gonna put a respectable team out there to and game plan, but it's just we differ where we come to these wins and losses, like with who we choose.
Which Seattle game do you have them losing? The one I talked about in
Yes.
Week 18?
Well,
Because I have them losing Week 18 to Seattle, potentially. Because they're probably going to sit all their guys.
what's the first Seattle game?
Week 13.
And that's not a primetime one?
Nope. Week 12, they're on the road at Kansas City. Week 14, they're Thursday night hosting the
See,
Raiders.
to me, that kind of feels like
That's a trap game for
that
real.
they could lose that game, and that's kind of, I think, if I remember correctly, going over the schedule last night, I saw that and I was like, that's interesting. Like,
Metcalf, Lockett, great weapons. Running backs, if they're healthy.
and plus you're catching Seattle way at the end of the season, both times. Seattle's gonna have enough time. Maybe they have Baker, maybe they don't, but they're gonna have enough time to have this team put together where they know who they are and what they can do. So that's where my thinking was with this. And I think you always get one or two Rams losses at the end of the season where it's like, what the hell game was that?
Interesting. I never thought I'd keep my eye on a Seattle Rams game, but I'm doing it this year. That is interesting. That's a trap game for real. Because after that Vegas game, you have Monday night on the road at Green Bay.
Yeah.
Coming back for Denver. And
That's
then
a
on
tough
the road at the
stretch.
Chargers. Yeah, it's a tough stretch for real. Seattle might get both of those games. Shit. San Fran. I have 10-7. Losing to Denver, KC, Rams, Tampa, Chargers, Vegas, Cardinals. Unfortunately. I'm assuming this is Jimmy. If this was Trey Lance, I'd probably go 8-9, 7-10 potentially. But
Yeah.
I think, this locker room loves Jimmy. He seems to play decent for this team. Shanahan knows what to do with him.
Mm-hmm.
He's proven to be, he's got that team to three NFC championship games. So I think they're going to follow behind Jimmy for one more year before they go ahead and go forward with Trey Lance, either halfway through this season or next year. But I have this, just Jimmy's playing all 17.
So I got them going 9-8, and I think this is one of my more disappointing teams, just based on the recent history of where they've been. And it comes down to, like you said, just the quarterback. Like, I feel more comfortable giving them a win or two more if it was Jimmy.
This feels disappointing, but I feel like this team was always around 10-6 or so. I don't know if they're really winning divisions. They just play well against the Packers, Dallas, and the Rams.
They're a hard team to beat.
It's a tough team to beat.
So,
Baltimore could do it.
and then they get into the
everybody's
playoffs, and then they're a whole different beast. Like, so it's just, and I think, and it's funny with this division, most of Seattle's wins that I have them, it's because they're splitting with their division. So I think every team in this division is going to lose to Seattle once, but
wow,
and that's just the a respect thing that I'm doing, because it was tough for me to actually pick wins for Seattle, because I just think losing Russell Wilson is going to be such a huge drop off that they could be around that Chicago, Houston area.
What'd you have for Seattle?
5-12.
Okay, I had 1-16. I feel the same way, but I do feel like Drew Lock is okay and Geno Smith is okay.
Yeah,
and they could definitely get this team some wins, but the offensive line is bad, the defense is bad, the defensive backfield is bad. All you really have is Lockett and DK. Some running backs that are probably going to get hurt, but they are good running backs. I just think 1-16. I would say 3 wins is probably reasonable.
Okay. Yeah, I think 5-12 is probably their ceiling.
So right in the middle for us.
Yeah, I couldn't go any higher than 5 for them. This was a tougher schedule for me to break down, because
This was a tough schedule Seattle has.
Because I'm just like, man, you're coming from a place where you know what you get with Seattle, especially with having Russell Wilson.
This is at least 8 with Russ.
Yeah, exactly.
This is tough though.
It's a hard.
And I personally don't feel like he's that much of a difference. But at the same time, we're gonna get right into it. Denver, I have 11-6. If they had Drew Lock, looking at the schedule, probably 6-11. So
yeah,
maybe he is that much of a difference.
I do have. I have Denver at 11-6 as well.
Okay. I have a Vegas loss, the Chargers loss, Baltimore, KC, Rams, and KC again.
Okay. So I have Denver losing to Tennessee, San Francisco, Vegas, Chargers, Kansas City, and Rams.
Okay.
So
You didn't say Baltimore?
I gave them the win against Baltimore.
That's a tough game.
It's,
It's on the road for Denver, though. That's why I gave us that one. We're at home for that, so.
I just think, and
We're pretty evenly
what
matched.
week does that come in again?
That would be 14.
14, okay. Yeah, and
13.
It was tough because, going into this schedule for Denver, I'm also thinking about, I don't know if there's going to be any NFL discipline for Jerry Jeudy. And the thing that happened recently.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a big blow to Russ. I just think Jeudy is that good of a playmaker. I mean, I know you got a couple other guys over there, but losing Jeudy would be a pretty big hit for that offense. So, but I went into it thinking he's going to play. So
You do have Patrick and Sutton? I mean, those guys are good.
yeah,
I
they're
like
good.
them.
But Jeudy, he adds a whole different dimension to that pass game. So I got him at 11-6. So not much else to say, really. I think this division is going to speak for itself with these records.
Yeah, we're going to be around the same with all these teams, I assume. This Denver team, very good defense. In the addition of Russell Wilson, I think will take them over the top as far as playoff contention.
Probably their best season since Peyton's been there.
Yeah, I won't say they get to the playoffs, and we'll talk about why not.
Exactly.
Kansas City, I have 14-3, losing to Vegas, Buffalo, and the Chargers.
Okay, so I had 11-6 with Kansas City as well, and this was a tough one for me because I just think with Kansas City, they lost Cheetah.
Yep.
They don't have that great of a run game.
No, they don't.
You only got so much longer to lean on Kelsey.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm intrigued by Justin Ross, that undrafted free agent signing. I mean, he could come in and be in a perfect position with Mahomes.
Schedule is tough.
It's tough, and you lose Honey Badger. I know who'd you get, Eric Reed? So I think that's a little bit of drop off there. Mm-hmm. I know you got McDuffie over there. Time will tell with him. Who'd they get? Sky Moore for a receiver.
Yep.
Another little small, speedy guy. But I mean, I like McCole Hardman, but I trust. I do. Obviously, you got to respect Mahomes, obviously, because he's been to the AFC Championship every year in his career so far.
That's crazy.
So I mean, it was tough going 11-6 based on their recent history, but it's just I think this is a time this year where they kind of take a step back, and they'll probably be more around the 13-4 range next year.
Okay. They did franchise Orlando. They brought back Frank Clark, so defense and offensive line should be decent.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Jones is on the defensive side too. The running game is definitely a question. Edwards-Helaire hasn't been an answer, but they brought over Ronald Jones. They did lose Tyreek, yeah. Brought over Corey Coleman, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Juju. And then you did draft the guys you mentioned. I just feel like we're underestimating Patrick, man. The defense is a question, a big question. This team, though, man, him and Andy Reid, I think they're going to cook up something great. You have the best tight end in the league. You can still do a lot with that. It's not just a big, bulky guy that's a blocker. He's very elusive. Mm-hmm. He can get the ball. He's, shooting for 1,200 yards this year, 10 touchdowns. That's definitely going to be beneficial. Yeah, 14-3 does seem a little generous after some of the points you brought up. I could definitely see more 12-5.
When you think about when you talk about Buffalo at 14-3 and Kansas City at 14-3, those are two totally different 14-3 teams.
And this schedule is tough. I mean, I hear you.
And I mean, the division they're going to be in this year with all those playmakers every team brought in, the AFC West, that's smash mouth football this year. Like, you're going to get banged up.
I agree. But I think they got a chance. They're going to win this week 2, home for the Chargers, which is Thursday night. Ooh. They're going to lose to Vegas and Buffalo, but then they're going to go on a little run. They have the Chargers and Rams back-to-back, but other than that, I don't think they're going to have a lot of trouble with Denver. And Vegas, I do have them splitting with Vegas, but Buffalo and the Chargers, I think, are their only 2 definitive losses. Rams, I think, is going to be one of those games where they, don't really show up the way they're supposed to. So I think I got him for the Rams game, even though that is back-to-back with a Chargers game.
Yeah.
So it's tough. 14-3. I mean, I'm being optimistic for them. Mahomes hears y'all talking though. One, I can't do it. I'm Patrick. He's gonna come for y'all ass this year, boy. Yeah. Vegas, what you got?
11-6.
Same.
So
losses too.
Losses, I got them. Denver, Kansas City, Chargers. So splitting in the division. They're gonna have an upset loss against New Orleans Saints. They're losing to the Rams and San Francisco.
Okay. I got Chargers sweeping, Indy, KC, Denver, and the Rams as their 6 losses.
All right.
This team, concerned about the coaching staff, just seeing what they're going to bring over, but having Devontae Adams and Derek Carr is a great combination, similar to the Kyler Murray, Marquise Brown combination. You get your college buddy in there, which is going to be great. I'm concerned about this offensive line, and they didn't bring back Josh Jacobs, so I wonder if he's going to hold out training camp or anything like that, because he's shown that he deserves that contract. I mean, he's not a home run hitter or anything like that, but he's a solid back.
Yeah, he's solid.
And,
gets the job done.
Yep, guys look at that like it's disrespect. Defense, bringing over Chandler Jones, him and Max Crosby, that's going to be great on that front 7. Defensive backfield leaves a little bit to be desired, but 11-6 I think is a very, very reasonable record for this team right here.
For sure. Yeah, there's not much to say. Everything you said. I mean, I'm excited to just see Carr and Adams go out there and put up some numbers. I think Carr he's gonna have a solid year this year. I like what they're doing over there. I think McDaniel's coaching him along. Oh man, this division. It's gonna be heartbreaking for one of these teams maybe even 2 teams in this division to have a good year and then you get out, snubbed out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's going to be heartbreaking as a fan.
We're going to figure out which team it is in just a second here. Finishing out this record prediction segment, LA Chargers, last team in the AFC West. Who you got?
Chargers, man.
What you got?
I got 12-5.
13-4. Losses to?
Losses to Denver, Vegas, San Francisco, Arizona, and the Rams.
Okay. KC, Miami, Tennessee, Denver for me. This is a team, I think, ultimately, them and KC will both finish 13-4. I just had to pick one for a winner.
Oh, that's a tough one, man.
I had to give KC 14. Chargers didn't make the playoffs last year. Let's not forget. They definitely underachieved, similar to the Indianapolis Colts. Minnesota Vikings, too, you could say. But I think these are all 3 teams that are going to be really close to that playoff bubble this year, if not all in it.
Yeah.
We all know the additions. J.C. Jackson, Khalil Mack, brought back Mike Williams on an extension. This team filled the holes that it had to. I'm impressed with what they did with the draft and with the offseason. Typically not a team where you see making moves like that. Definitely not a football town. And of the 2 football teams, it's little brother. So for the Chargers to make moves like this, I think we could potentially have an LA Super Bowl this year.
You potentially could. I think the Chargers, just what they did in the offseason, obviously you can put as great of a team as you want on paper, but it's all comes down to how you connect, how everyone's connecting, gelling. But I think Herbert's a bad man. I think that team underachieved last year.
Yeah,
and
they did.
I think that they're gonna be a tough out this year. I just think that they're gonna be the team to watch because they could come in and go to the Super Bowl for sure.
I'm interested to see this division, man. We've said it 100 times, but all these teams we have 11-6 minimum. One of them's gonna be left out. One of them's gonna be heartbroken.
Yep.
This is reminding me of old days in the Western Conference of the NBA where you have 50-win teams getting 8 seeds.
Yeah.
That's what this is gonna look like right here. That'll do it though for our record predictions. We're gonna come right back and give y'all our playoff brackets, and we're gonna let you know who we think will come out on top as the champion. All right. So here we are. We're going to go through our playoff brackets, just like the NFL would have it, 7 teams, each division. I'm going to start with the AFC. I have Cincinnati versus Baltimore, the 3-6. Kansas City versus Vegas with the 2-7. Tennessee versus the Chargers with the 4 and 5. Baltimore, Kansas City, and the Chargers winning those games. So Baltimore will play Buffalo. Kansas City will go on and play the Chargers. I got Buffalo and Kansas City winning those games. To represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, I have Buffalo beating Kansas City.
All right, so for AFC, I got Buffalo as the 1 seed. You got Chargers at 2, Baltimore at 3, Indy at 4, KC at 5, Cincy 6, and Las Vegas 7. So with Buffalo getting the bye, I have the Chargers beating Vegas in the first round. I have Baltimore beating Cincy in the first round, and I have KC beating Indy in the first round. Then I got Buffalo playing at home against Kansas City, and Buffalo's getting revenge, taking that one.
Okay.
I got Baltimore going to the Chargers, with the Chargers taking that one.
You almost tricked me.
And then for the AFC Championship, I got Buffalo at home versus the Chargers, and I don't see the Chargers going into Buffalo and winning that game.
No, late in the season, that's tough.
So
we agree, Buffalo. Let's hear your NFC side.
NFC, I got Rams at number 1. I got Tampa Bay at number 2. Minnesota at 3. Philly at 4. Dallas at 5. Green Bay at 6. And Arizona at 7.
Okay.
So LA Rams get the bye. I got Tampa Bay playing host to Arizona. Tampa Bay is winning that game, no question. I got Minnesota playing host to Green Bay.
Oh, baby.
And I'm not giving up. Remember, this is all predictions, and this is, you got to add the fandom into here a little bit, so we're not losing at home to Green Bay in the playoffs. If it was at Lambeau, I would have probably gave it to Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
But since we're going to have that place rocking at US Bank, let's bring it home, baby.
Love to see it.
And then I got Philly playing host to Dallas, with Philly taking that one. So I got some division games in this first round, which is a fun opening weekend. Next round, I got LA Rams playing at home against Philly. The Rams take care of business there. And then I got Tampa Bay playing at home against Minnesota, where Minnesota goes down.
Tom. Sly devil, you.
And then we got another rematch, the NFC Championship, Rams, Tampa Bay. And I got the Rams taking care of business there.
Okay.
So Super Bowl matchup of Rams versus Buffalo.
Okay. My NFC, I have Tampa as the number 1 seed. So Minnesota as the 3, facing San Fran as the 6. Rams at 2, facing the 7 seed Dallas. Philly at 4, facing Green Bay at 5. I'm going to go ahead and say San Fran's going to upset you guys that first round. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's a tough team to play in the playoffs. Rams I got making easy work of Dallas for that 2-7 matchup, in Philly likewise over Green Bay. Easy work. So now I have Tampa as the 1 seed coming in, beating San Fran at home. The Rams beating Philly at home for a rematch, and identical picture to yours. I have Rams versus Tampa Bay to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. Rams heading back there. And what is your Super Bowl prediction? We both have Buffalo against the Rams. First game of the season, Thursday Night Football. Last game of the season.
All right, what a way to start and end.
Perfect.
Are we wanting to score prediction here?
Let's do it.
All right, so I'm going to go Buffalo taking care of business, 34-31.
That's close, man. I'm gonna go. Let me pick my pen up, hopefully. Let's see. 34-31, huh? What's that, 64? 65, over, under. I'm going to go 33-30. It's going to be right around that score, I believe. 34-31 is a great score. I'm going to go 33-27, actually.
Okay.
Walk-off fashion.
Oh, really?
Walk-off fashion.
Okay. I'd give it a walk-off, too, with a field goal, but...
No, touchdown.
A touchdown would be
33-27, walk-off
Book
fashion.
Book it.
Walk-off. 2Ks. I don't know my letters, my numbers, my words, anything. But I know my champion. That's the Buffalo Bills.
And that's a prediction.
That's how you do it, man. Start to finish. That was fun.
That was a fun one.
Next time we link, we'll be in a new location. I think we're going to go ahead and do our quarterback rankings.
All right, sounds good to me.
Make our ultimate quarterback as well.
Are we going history of NFL, or are we going current, or are we...
How you feel? You want to do like top 10 quarterbacks all time? And
then we can rank
the starters?
Yeah, then we can rank the starters. That's cool.
That works for me. So we'll have that for y'all next time, maybe, let's say 2 weeks or so. That's the plan, but, we'll see how this move goes and keep it updated, man.
Sounds good, bro.
Until then, it's been real.
For sure.